I have only briefly looked at the convention workbook, and starting after this paper today is when I'm going to start studying the convention workbook. They have, I believe, 15 to 20 floor committees. Normally they have about 10. There it goes. That's better. And so the idea is that this will give each floor committee more time instead of just brushing over something to deal with some of these issues. I believe there is something that deals, a floor committee that just deals in the area of adjudication and dispute resolution and that whole thing.
It's Floor Committee 12 on ecclesiastical supervision and dispute resolution. I'm going to mention some of that.
Good. Are you on the committee?
No. I am a delegate, though.
Okay. So yeah, there's your answer. Though it's considered of enough importance, and that means that there's enough overtures that went into the synod that the organizers, the synod president, said we need to do that.
All right, thank you, Pastor Nolan, for that detailed paper. I have a question. My congregation entered into a dissented officially in 2005, going through the various stages, college of my peers, sending it up to CTCR. The district president, he's passed into glory. He said I was doing everything right. And the CTCR sent back in response to my dissent in 2006, as I was in 2008, and we went through that in Bible class. And my congregation, myself, we both sent back and said, we don't recognize this. We don't agree. We don't think we've been refuted, and we continue our dissent. My question is, are we in a dispute resolution process?
From what you've described, you're under bylaw 1.8, which is a separate thing.
Okay.
It's called doctrinal dissent. Is that what you do? Right. Has nothing to do with dispute resolution or expulsion case. So your case is dealt with under 1.8. And those that are unfamiliar with it, the dissent goes to the Fellowship of Peers.
Right, and we did that.
And then to the CTCR.
In which he did that, and then the Will Robbery said in 2011, when he chastised us for not following this doctrinal dissent, and I said, hey, I've been waiting for an answer since 2008. He says, send me all the paperwork, and I'll see what I can do. I haven't heard from him since.
Yeah. So you dissent, then it finds expression as an overture to the convention calling for revision or rescission.
And we have done that. And they don't even make it to the floor committee, as I was out before. So
that is the process, and so you've gone as far as you can go. You bring it to the intention, but it does not require that they respond.
You mentioned that the revisions of 1941 brought out the reality that district presidents were no longer accountable. Are you the first to discover that, and if not, then whom and about when? This is the first time I've completely seen it written like this. So about when did that come about?
Well, I'm saying that since the two, what year did you say?
1941.
1941, yeah. Yeah, that was an insight that it was during the panel, were you there at the LCA conference? And the LCA had the entire thing wasn't on this too, was it?
Everything but the creation.
Except the creation. So the LCA in January in Fort Wayne, they also talked about this. Most of their presentations were about this issue. And at the end, they had, I was the youngest of the group, Walter Disson, who used to be on the Commission on Appeals and could speak from experience, and David Hawk, who's been on the board of directors of the Synod. He is a sharp lawyer. So we had two lawyers, and I forgot who, Bill Kilps, who is going to make the presentation. Is he here yet? He was speaking on the reconcilers. And so we had a Q&A with two lawyers and two Missouri Synod pastors, and we just talked about this. And as we were going through, some lights went on in my mind about how the 1941 had a disconnect. That's when it happened. I think it was because of something Walter Disson said. He's kind of like the Holy Spirit. I listen to him very carefully, and I think about it, and I think, well, that really is true. And he's a lawyer, too. A great gift to our church that we've had lawyers like him. Another thing I should tell you is that the rules for procedure in that period from, up until 92, the rules for procedure were written by lawyers. Because when you hire a lawyer to represent you, what you are hiring is somebody who knows procedure. You know nothing about procedure when you go into civil court. That's what they're expert in. And you know about your own problems and you're trying to settle that, but you don't know how to go about it. The lawyer knows procedure. And so we utilized the talent that the Lord gave to us with lawyers, and they wrote the procedure for the Missouri Synod until 92, and then we tanked the whole thing and said we don't want any lawyers at all. And now look what we have since. We have a bunch of pastors writing, well, what do I say? What you have is ministers of the gospel trying to write law. You know, Missouri Synod pastors, we're geared toward gospel. We're not geared toward the law. So when we try to do it, it's a mix mash. It's a mix.
You made it very clear in your paper, Dr. Nolan, that in many of these kind of things, the synodical president just doesn't have the power that we think he should or that we want him to have. Why is it then that under the previous administration with President Kishnik, whenever there was a ruling that he didn't like, he found a way to come up with some synodical president power to call up the ruling for review and just kept redoing it and redoing it and redoing it until he got the answer he wanted. Now, was he a better master at the bylaws, handbook, and constitution? Did he choose to use power that was there that our current president is restraining himself from using? What would be your observation with regard to that?
My answer is 2 words. Will Sones. There, you hear affirmation back there? Do you all know who Will Sones is and was? Will Sones was the long-standing, I don't know if he was the chairman, but pretty much was the chairman of the Commission on Constitutional Matters. And he ended up, was previously the Wyoming district president and was a very close friend and associate of Ralph Bowman. And when the dispute resolution process was instituted, I believe it was that year or thereabouts, Will ended up on the CCM and has been on the CCM until last year, I think. So how many years is that? 20, 30 years?
Forever.
And anybody coming onto the CCM had to deal with Will, and it was never really a happy process. When Bowman was president, he would appoint his own men that agreed with Will. When Kishnik was on that the same thing, Barry was unable to get, I think, maybe one person, but it didn't have an effect. It was only when Will became unable to serve, because he is of older age, that we finally have now, as of last year, a decent Commission on Constitutional Matters that people actually follow the bylaws. They don't invent things that you never heard of before. You have a Secretary of Synod that actually has always been trying to do that, and President Harrison wants to follow the bylaws too. So the question is, how did Kishnik and Bowman get away with it? Is because they had their man on that key commission. And that key commission would come up with all the one that you heard about was the ruling which said that Benke could get off free because Kishnik told him that he could go up and preach at the Yankee Stadium thing. So in other words, if your pastor says that it's okay for you to go out and, do whatever, to go steal a car, if your pastor says it's okay, then it's okay. That's what the CCM ruling basically said. Now, fortunately, a couple of conventions ago, we revoked that, which was just, but guess who wrote that? That's Will Sones. He will go down in the history book. My history book is the bad man of the Missouri Synod for this generation, because he perverted a lot of stuff. But Bowman and Kishnik knew how to use him. Now, the problem is, if he can do that, somebody else can do it too. So we need to figure out some way, and the best way is to, in my opinion, to say that CCM and CTCR rulings are not binding, they're only advisory. And so when you have a court, we call it a panel now, with the judge is the one that has to make the decision. He can get the expert opinion, but he has to make the decision. And then you have something that really makes more sense. Right now, though, CCM and CTCR rulings are not only rendered ex parte, which meant that you all in ACELC found out you had been tried and found guilty, and you never knew that you were even being tried for this, right? Yeah, well, that's ex parte. You were the victims of that. CTCR and CCM, in my opinion, should only be advisory. And that would help a lot. Because we need to have the experts, no doubt about that. But should they be these secret judges that nobody knows about and that's perverting our bylaws and our scriptures, too, for that matter? So there you go.
Will Soames also was the author of the divine dismissal of called her name, servants of word, that horrific document that we looked at last year in Kansas City. He is the author of that. And so that's why that name may sound familiar to some of you.
Thank you, Clint. Thank you, Clint. Yeah, that was worth putting on the record, yes.